But I've never heard of this Ser Arlan of Pennytree. You were his squire, you say?
He always meant for me to be a knight one day.
Witnesses, do you dubbing?
Only a robin in a thorn tree.
He's lying. George R.R. Martin confirmed it. But what's truly fascinating is that once you understand why Dunk is lying in this moment, and what Martin hid inside these pages to prove it, you'll realize that this lie is the reason a boy from Flea Bottom, with no name and no family, ends up in the White Book, standing beside Arthur Dane and Barristan Selmy as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard.
Sir Duncan the Tall. 4 pages for Sir Duncan. He must have been quite a man.
So they say.
And it starts right here, with a dead man and a stolen title. The year is 209 AC, about 90 years before Robert Baratheon sits on the Iron Throne. And right now, a boy is burying the only person who ever loved him, Ser Arlan of Pennytree. Not famous, not powerful, just an old man who wandered the roads with a squire, sleeping in ditches, fighting in small tourneys for enough coin to eat. And that squire, Dunk, has been with him since he was a child. No parents, no house, no name worth remembering, just Arlan. And now Arlan is dead, died on the side of a road, going nowhere. And Dunk is standing over that grave with nothing. A dead man's horse, his armor, his sword, and a choice.
We could go to a city. Could join the city watch.
This line, buried in Dunk's private thoughts, pages before the story even really begins, might be the most important line in the entire Dunk and Egg saga. In the book, Dunk here thought in his mind, I could find another Hedge Knight in need of a squire to tend his animals and clean his mail, he thought. Or might be I could go to some city, to Lannisport or King's Landing, and join the city watch. He's thinking about going back to being a squire. His first instinct, his honest, unfiltered, private thought with no one watching, is to find a new master, to go back to carrying someone else's armor. Why would a newly knighted man think that? Why would someone who supposedly just had a sword laid on his shoulder and heard the sacred words, why would his very next thought be about becoming a squire again? Unless the knighting never happened. Unless he's still just a boy standing over a grave, realizing that the only path forward, the only way to survive, is to become someone he's not. The lie is born. And this is where you have to understand something dangerous about Westeros. In this world, any knight can make a knight. No registry, no certificate, no formal record. A knight taps a man with a sword, says the words, and it's done. It could happen at the Sept of Baelor with 1,000 witnesses, or it could happen in a muddy field with nobody watching. And that means any dead knight can be claimed to have made a knight with no one alive to deny it. That's the crack in the wall. That's what Dunk sees, standing over that grave. If Arlan is dead, and there's no one to contradict the story, who's going to say it didn't happen? But here's the trap. In Westeros, the system isn't held together by paperwork. It's held together by social proof, by who saw it, by who can vouch. And if someone with real power ever decides to press Dunk on his story, really press him, he has nothing. No witness, no proof. Just a dead man's name and a bird in a tree. The man at the registration is named Plumber. He's a steward. His only job is to make sure the men who enter the lists are actually knights. And when this enormous boy with a dead man's shield walks up, Plumber does what any gatekeeper does.
Our Lord's tourney is a contest for knights. You a knight?
Now watch what Dunk does.
I was squire to Ser Arlan of Pennytree since I was a boy. He knighted me before he passed.
And Dunk isn't cool and confident while doing this. His ears are red. His voice is working overtime to sound like a man's when it still belongs to a boy. He's not answering a question. He's performing. But then comes the question that nearly breaks him.
Any knight can make a knight, it's true. Were there witnesses to your dubbing?
In Westeros, witnesses are your proof.
Only a robin in a thorn tree.
He paints a picture. The deathbed, the sword, the sacred words. In psychology, this is a liar's pivot. Honest people give simple answers. Liars give detailed scenes to cover the emptiness underneath. Plumber isn't buying it. He asks for witnesses. Dunk's response is the most famous evasion in fantasy history. Only a robin up in a thorn tree. It's a behavioral pattern. In The Sworn Sword, Lady Rohan Weber asks him directly.
And the same Ser Arlan knighted you?
No one else was like to do it.
It's technically true, but it's a confession in disguise. Every time Dunk's knighthood is challenged, he blushes, he stammers, and he lunks his way out of a direct yes. And here is the smoking gun. In 2004, George R.R. Martin was asked point-blank at a convention, was Dunk really knighted? His answer? He was not knighted by Ser Arlan. So, Dunk is a fraud. But in Westeros, the lie is what makes him the only true knight. Look at the men who actually had the ceremony. Jaime Lannister was knighted by the legendary Arthur Dayne, and he murdered his king. The Mountain was knighted by Rhaegar Targaryen, and he became a monster, raping and murdering Rhaegar's own wife. Even the Kingsguard stood by while the Mad King abused his queen, because as they said, "We are sworn to protect our queen, but not from the king." They had the oils, the vigil, and the witnesses, yet they made the word knight a joke. Then look at Dunk.
A knight defends the innocent. That's all I did.
He has no lineage, no ceremony, no witness but a bird. But when he sees an innocent girl about to be mutilated by a prince, he doesn't check the rulebook. He steps in. He lives the vows the real knights only recite. He is a knight because he decided to be, not because someone tapped him on the shoulder. Dunk rises from the mud of Flea Bottom to become Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. He becomes the man who leads the most elite order in the realm. For every second he wore that white cloak, the lie was there. He was the greatest knight in history because he lived in fear of being found out. He didn't need a sword on his shoulder to be a hero. He just needed a good heart and the courage to pretend until the world caught up to him. The truest knight in Game of Thrones history was a liar, and that is exactly why we love him. You know, Martin once said that the Dunk and Egg stories are his favorites to write. And I think I finally understand why. Because underneath the tournaments and the princes and the Hedge Knight adventures, he's asking something that has no easy answer. What makes you who you are? Is it a ceremony? A title? Permission from people in power? Or is it something quieter than that? Something that happens when no one is watching, and no one will ever know. When you decide, for no reason anyone would understand, to be good anyway. Dunk was never knighted. He was never given permission to be what he became. He just became it. And maybe that's the most knightly thing anyone in Westeros has ever done. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I want to ask you something. Do you think Dunk deserved the title even though he was never knighted? Or does the lie change how you see him? Drop your take in the comments. I'd genuinely love to hear it. Leave a like, hit subscribe. Your support will genuinely help the secretive algorithm notice this channel. See you next time. Until then, stay cult.